Hello, One Piece enthusiasts. I'm the One Piece nerd. Today, let's talk about random characters in the world of One Piece. So, continuing on from the last discussion, I'm going to talk about a bunch of characters that we know the names of or we know the faces of, but we don't know about them completely. So, this is not something that Oda does a lot. In fact, it was done before when we didn't know much, and now 25 years later, 1,000 chapters later, we have very few characters that we've yet to see. One of the biggest mysteries being Emu's real face, and whatever, we wanted to know that for a very long time. And that was pretty much it. And other than that, there weren't many intrigues for us to see. We've been dropped a bunch of random characters. For example, the Gods Knights. We knew about the Gods Knights a lot later in the series, and now we're getting to see them. So, now that we are now in the final saga, we've also seen all the Gods Knights. There is one Gods Knight we haven't seen, and if you guys will remember, if you guys see the character descriptions of all the Gods Knights, there are supposed to be 10, and there's one missing. Garling used to be a Gods Knight, and he got promoted to a Celestial Dragon, a Gorosei, and now we will have another character, the 10th missing Gods Knight we have yet to see. That's a mysterious character that we have almost no idea about. And then we will talk similarly about the Man Marked by Flames. So the Man Marked by Flames is obviously a big mystery, and it's probably going to be one of the most influential characters in the world of One Piece, because he probably has the last poneglyph, and from a lot of wide speculations, and I think the most obvious speculation is that the Man Marked by Flames is a government man, as Shiryu stated, and with the God's Knight not being present, this is not my theory, but this is what I heard from people, that the last God's Knight could be the Man Marked by Flames, but it's pretty obvious that the Man Marked by Flames is a government man, because the world government are also in the race for One Piece, and obviously they need someone to make sure that nobody else gets all the 4 poneglyphs and goes to Raftail, because the last time this happened, it turned out really bad for the world government. So, other than that, of course, let's just say those two are tied together. And another character that we'll mention is the likelihood of seeing a character that has been name dropped, and we know very influential figures, but we haven't seen. For example, we haven't seen Wang Zhi in the current timeline. We don't know where he is. And then before Elbaf, we knew there was Scopper Gaban, but we only got to see Gaban after the Elbaf arc started. These are some of the few characters that have been, we know they exist in the world. For example, Shiki, but we haven't seen them. But Shiki is not a very prevalent character. Scopper Gaban, to an extent, is, because we've seen Rayleigh, and it's like, it was weird not to see Gaban as well. And now let's talk about a character that has been just dropped in chapter 1185. It's the last panel of the chapter, where we see Princess Shuri. By the way, this is spoilers for chapter 1185. So we've seen Princess Shuri basically off her father, and we see a government man sitting there with a cigar, the same way Shiryu does. Now, remember, we don't know much about Shiryu's backstory, but from what we know, Shiryu has always been a part of Impel Down, and it's unlikely that 58 years ago, and I don't think Shiryu was even born at that time. I don't think, not 58, I don't even know, 68, 78 years ago, I don't think Shiryu was even there. So that's a government man that the face was blurred, and we have no idea who they are. But it can be assumed that that person is definitely either a God's Knight or a previous Gorosei, because Emu can't do Domi Reversi without there being a Covenant seal for a world government agent, and the only way to get it is probably through either becoming a Gorosei or a God's Knight. So my speculation is that's probably the last God's Night, and the eyes were blurred out. And remember, one thing that Oda has mentioned randomly, it at this point isn't a rumor; it's very confirmed that Oda's planning to bring a character with an eye patch. And if you guys have been following One Piece for a very long time, and you guys know the tropes of pirates, like having Jolly Roger, and then having a hooked arm, which Crocodile has. The only thing we have yet to see is someone with an eye patch. That's the last thing we have yet to see in the world of One Piece when it comes to the tropes of typical pirates. And Oda has mentioned that when the pirate with the eye patch shows up, well, it's technically a pirate. I'm not sure if that's a pirate or a character. Could be a pirate, could be a government man turned into a pirate. I don't even know. But it's entirely. But yeah, there is a man with an eye patch. Maybe it's the same person that's the man marked by a flame, in which case it'd be very weird if it's from the government side, because the government isn't, pirates. But yeah, that's another character yet to be dropped. And the last person that we just saw in the chapter could definitely be the last remaining God's Knight that we have no idea about. Could be the man marked by flames. And then there's another character, which, let's just say these are two separate characters, is the character with the iPads that Oda talked about, and we have yet to see about that. And then we've got 2 name drops. And this rarely, and when I mean rarely happens in the world of One Piece. Especially in the post-time skip era, where a character will be name dropped and we have no idea about their background information. So amongst them, we have Mosa, and both of these characters, Mosa and Dozan, are 2 characters that have been named in the arc of Elbaf. So if you guys remember way back at the start of Elbaf, Loki was talking to someone. Loki calls this person a friend. We've seen the transponder snail. It looks like they have big eyelashes. It sounds like they're a girl. Now, speculation suggests that the girl could be Shirahoshi, which would make sense, maybe, but it seems unlikely that Shirahoshi, out of all people who didn't even go up to the surface, has connections with Loki. But whoever this Mosa is could be very influential. Another thing that I just popped up in my head, that I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with me, disagree, but I'm gonna make a video very soon about this character. Is Biblo. Biblo is very weird. In the arc of Elbaf, Biblo has been one of the weirdest characters that I've seen, and so much mystery and intrigue around this character, especially with the lore drops of Elbaf. There is a narrator of Elbaf, and there was a creator of the Harley, and then there are warning signs that the narrator warned us about, and it's definitely a residence of Elbaf. A part of me just realized maybe that Mosa could be Biblo, because it kind of looked like they had owl eyes, and if Biblo does have a personality, Biblo obviously does. They're an influential character, they know everything about the world of Elbaf. It doesn't seem impossible for Biblo to be Loki's friend, and the only friend that believed Loki's story, because no one knows about King Harald's situation other than Loki and Gaban, and probably even Biblo. So that's another thing, a connection that I have to make, that this Mosa character could be Biblo. And then Biblo's case is entirely different from what we were talking about. And the other character, of course, being Dozan. So the character Dozan has been mentioned by Imu when he is fighting with Loki. It's entirely possible that Dozan could be the previous Nidhogg user, but the thing is, Imu doesn't talk about characters or personalities that he's known from 800 years ago by their second name or a different name. You'll see Emu talk about Luffy in the terms of Joy Boy, and then you see Loki talk about Emu talk about Loki about Loki in the sense of Needhawk. So it's unlikely that this character is either Needhawk or Joy Boy, or maybe even Zunisha. There's a story behind Zunisha's 800-year punishment, whatever. So that's another character from the Void Century that we have no idea about, and these are again very rare. So from all of this, like we can go back to time. We can go back to time when the four emperors were name dropped, when Doflamingo was name dropped. We've seen stuff like similar to this where the characters have been name dropped and some lore has been given, but we have no idea about them. And we've seen characters pop up randomly. For example, Garp. For example, the 10 Gods Knights, and then the even the Shichibukai. Also, like these characters just came about. The Shichibukai, I guess, no, but the Yonkos came about randomly. The Supernovas came about randomly. But there are very few characters in the world of One Piece that have just been name dropped with no background and no information as to who they are, how they're connected, and whether or not they're influential. So these are some of the characters I want you guys to keep in mind. And since I'm not good at theory, I'm not even going to speculate who they are. You guys have fun in the comment section. I just want to talk about them. Who do you guys think Mosa is? Do you really think it's Shirahoshi? That would be very weird. If it's Biblo, that's really fun. This Dozan characters also seem very interesting since it's related to Emu, and Emu obviously will mention very influential figures in the Void Century. And of course, what we can tell, we don't know much about the Void Century either. So Dozan could be one of those few important characters. And of course, the Man Marked by Flames, it's wild speculation. Entirely possible we get it this arc, entirely possible we get it the next arc, but we'll get to the Man Marked by Flames really, really, really soon. And of course, the intrigue being the last God's Knight that we have yet to see. And who was the character at the end of today's chapter who used Dome Reversi on Princess Shuri? That's it for the video, guys. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and peace.